Welcome to another edition of the Dental Today podcast. Thank you for stopping by. This is brought to you by labmediatv. My name is Hezekiah Morales, and here we go. Remember to follow us on social media at labmediatv.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Dental Today podcast. We are very excited to be here in Chicago, Lab Day 2020, with a gentleman that has a lot of experience, a lot to say. We are excited to have him, Mr. Bobby Williams. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's very exciting to have you, and I'd like to go into very briefly here, just to get this started. What's going on with the project in your lab, the build? Very excited to hear about this.
Yeah, so that's been quite an undertaking. We decided to build a new laboratory about 2.5 years ago, and we were just simply running out of space. And so I needed to have the milling machines out of my office and have an actual office. So we decided to build something, and again, it was out of necessity for space, but we needed. I wanted to be closer to my house. I built a house 2 years ago up farther north from my current office, and I used to drive 1.5 miles. A mile and a half. Now I drive 30 minutes, and I don't like that. So for selfish reasons, I'm building a lab much closer to my house. So fast forward, the city that I'm building in, unfortunately, really doesn't care if you ever build a building in it, and it's unfortunate, but it's such a great location that we've been willing to kind of wait it out. So we're about 1 year behind in the process, but the foundation just got poured this week, so it'll go fast from here on out.
That's exciting. So, Bobby, again, one of the things that we do here is we like to know your background. Where do you come from? How did you start in dental? Was this your first choice? What did you accidentally? How did this happen?
I originally wanted to be a dentist, and so I went to undergrad at University of Oklahoma. I was a zoology major, and I was all about being a dentist. Actually, I wanted to be an orthodontist. And about halfway through undergrad, I ironically visited a laboratory I ended up working at in Texas, and I've always been pretty artistic, and to see the other side of it, to see the fabrication of it and the artistry that went into it really appealed to me. And for me, it was kind of a light bulb that went off that I could stay in dentistry and be artistic and not have my hands in someone's mouth all day. And so that was a big selling point for me. So I kind of backtracked when I graduated and went to a lab tech school. And from there, I started working in a production lab and learned what not to do. And about 9 months later, I ended up working in the lab that I originally visited. And the owner of that laboratory, his name was Phil Watkins. It was Functional Aesthetics in Louisville, Texas. Great guy. Really placed an emphasis on education. And so literally within the first, 2 or 3 months, I'd already taken 2 porcelain courses. And it was just a constant flow of education running through that. And so that really resonated with me. And I knew when I interviewed, the day I interviewed, I didn't know anything about building porcelain, but I told them I'll give them 5 years, and if I'm not part owner or managing the ceramics department, I was going to start my own laboratory. And 4 years and 11 months later, I gave them my notice and started my own lab.
So you've been working in your own lab for how long now?
I started Synergy Ceramics in November 2001, so 19 years.
So in total, you've been close to 25 years.
Yeah, well, a little over 25 years.
Over 25
I'm an old man. Yeah.
So 2001, 2020, 19 years.
Yeah.
A lot has happened in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But in these last 19 years, what would you say would be the biggest change that you've seen, let's say, in the character of the dental technician?
Biggest change in the character of the dental technician. I think education has really taken a back seat in dental lab technology, and I probably take more CE courses than I teach every year by double, easy. Again, education was hammered into me at my previous job, and for me, I watched my owner, who probably knows more about dental lab technology and dentistry in general than most people we know in this meeting, consistently educating himself. And so that just never stopped with me. And over the last 20 years, basically, I've seen a severe lack of education in our field, and it's really disappointing. You see dental lab schools closing down right and left. I mean, there's very few that are even open anymore. In my opinion, and I think everybody should have to be certified and should have to take some form of formal education. I believe a minimum of 2 years, but we're the only developed country in the world that doesn't require technicians to have an education. You can walk right off the street and call yourself a dental technician, and I think it's unfortunate. And the profession has suffered because of it over the years.
Why do you think that in the rankings of education, which the United States is in, that lacking of, let's call it, expectation or the standard? Where is this coming from? Is it legislation?
I think it's a vicious cycle. So let's say you're asked to go through let's just pretend we have a set that you have to get an associate's degree to become a dental lab technician. So that technician spends 2 years of his or her life developing an education and enriching themselves in this business. And then they go out into the field and they're hit smack in the face with a salary that's probably lower than what people make at Starbucks. And so why would you do that? And the vicious cycle is technicians as a whole have done it to themselves over the years. It's our fault. And I say that because technicians have undercut each other for so long that it's almost like, I liken it to, Dave Chappelle's crackhead character. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'll do anything for a crown. I'll do it for $1 less. No, I'll do it for $2 less. And all that does is let clinicians sit back and just laugh. I mean, honestly, they're laughing, and they're like, you guys fight over me, and I'll take the guy that has the lowest price. And so that, in combination with the education that's disappearing and nobody's coming into this workforce, it's great for me, but as the industry as a whole, I mean, we're hurting. You're seeing an attrition of dental labs across the country like we've never seen before in the last 5 years.
Dental laboratories closing left and right.
Yeah, I mean, you would come to this meeting 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and I could point out 20, 30 guys that had good, solid, middle-of-the-road, middle price, just good, solid work, everyday work, labs of 10 to 20 people. Those are almost non-existent today. It's either you're a small boutique lab that charges an exorbitant amount of money, or you're a huge production lab that is on a race to the bottom with Glidewell and whomever else wants to be on that race. And so when I started my lab in 2001, even back then, I said I would never do that. And I basically took fee schedule from my old lab and raised everything $75 a crown because I knew I could slow down and create that quality. And I never looked back. I didn't go knocking on doors for business. I created 100% of my business through referrals. And so I was lucky enough to get one client, and then that client refer, and that's a long, painful process. but it's the best kind of business building you could possibly do. I don't advertise ever. And we're fortunate. We're very fortunate to have clientele that we can kind of pick and choose who we want to work with. And it's because I've spent 19 years developing a referral business and not a solicitation business.
So, in other words, your goal is not to present a price. Your goal is to allow your work to speak for itself and behind closed doors,
yes,
without you being present. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. If a clinician calls me up, and they do about 3 to 4 times a week, we get people calling asking us, if the first thing out of their mouth is, how much do you charge for a crown? I don't even acknowledge it. I say, I'm not a good fit for you. Because if the first thing out of their mouth is that, they don't give a crap of what my quality is. It's all about price. And I'm not in the dictatorship business. I'm in the partnership business. And so every one of my clients, I'm on a first name basis with. I don't call them doctor. I call them Steve or Linda. Now, of course, I treat them with respect when I call their office and ask for Dr. Johnson. But if I'm face-to-face or on the phone, it is a partnership. This isn't about ego. I'm not trying to be the coolest technician on the planet, or I don't want my dentist to think they're the coolest clinicians on the planet. This is about the end result, which is the patient. And so that's how we view our business. And nothing goes out of my lab unless I'm confident I would put that in my mother's mouth, my father's mouth, my relatives, anybody, grandmother. If you would put those crowns in your grandmother's mouth, then it's good to go. Outside of that, that's nothing less than that. Am I the best ceramist on the planet? Hell no. We try to be better every single day, and we try to produce the best possible restorations we can. We've created quite a niche in our business. I have another ceramist that works with me, and we specialize in full mouth rehab, smile designs, larger cases, complex cases. And, the reality is 85-90% of our cases are OM3, 1M1, because it is what it is. That's what people want. But we try to make them look as natural as possible and more importantly, functional as possible. It's funny, I always said my old lab had the most perfect name for a dental lab. It was functional aesthetics. Function first, aesthetics second. And we go by that in Synergy Ceramics as well. The name Synergy Ceramics is based on the synergy between the dentist and the technician, and how we can come together to create the best product we can.
So besides the concept of pricing at the forefront of whether it's the mind of the technician or the clinician, what else would you say is possibly contributing to some of the technicians that are with quoting several gentlemen and ladies that have been on the show that say that a dental technician is giving away their work? How can a dental technician that's trying to move to the next level begin a conversation with his doctor or with the people that he works with to begin to adjust their prices, or do they start with a strategy first? Or what would your advice, your wisdom, what would your wisdom lead you to tell those types of individuals or organizations even?
Sure. So it's kind of a multifaceted answer, and the first thing is it's great to attend CE as a technician and come to this meeting and take a CE course here and there with a good ceramist and learn little pearls. I do it all the time. But more importantly, technicians have got to start attending clinical meetings. They've got to be shoulder to shoulder with clinicians. you really don't gain respect from clinicians unless you're taking the same education they are. Or you can demonstrate that you're competent in talking about cases, you're competent in talking about occlusion, function, treatment planning, case diagnosis, all of that. And so I think the biggest thing for me was I realized that quite a few years ago when I started attending clinical meetings. And then the kicker was in 2013, I started going through the COIS program. So the COIS Center has a 9-step program, and it's probably 98% clinicians and about 2% technicians that go through the program. And so you take 9 different courses to graduate, and some people knock it out in, heck, I had a Polish dentist that knocked it out in 2 months. He took them back to back to back, which is insane. I knocked it out in a little over 2 years, and that's on an accelerated pace. Most clinicians take about 4 or 5 years to finish it because it's very involved. I mean, you have to fly out to Seattle, and you have to be there. It depends if it's a track course, it's all week long, or it's either from track course that's all week long, or one course from Thursday through Sunday. But it's intensive. And as a technician, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I learned more from that course, or those courses, and graduating from the COIS Center. It was the best investment I ever made in anything related to being a dental technician. It was an investment in myself, and it wasn't cheap. I mean, when it was all said and done, John offers technicians half price, but half price is still a lot. I mean, I spent well over probably $75,000 over time graduating from the COIS program.
In 2 years.
Yeah. But I look at technicians all the time have no problems dropping $100,000 on a CEREC in-lab and don't know how to use it, when you can educate yourself on the fundamentals of dentistry. And guess what? I'm in a course every time I go out there with 45 dentists and one technician, maybe no technicians besides myself. And guess who John asks questions every chance he gets? The technician in the room. And John's very, very protective of dental technicians, and he really promotes the technicians to come out and go through the program because he wants COIS educated technicians to help support all the COIS dentists. And every break, guess what happens? 2 or 3 doctors come up to me, "Hey, do you have a card?" I paid for that course over and over and over again, all 9 of them. And it was the best education I ever received. And I still to this day have incredible relationships with clinicians all over the country because of it, whether I work with them or not. And price is rarely discussed. Quality is discussed. How are we going to do what's best for the patient is discussed.
Education, educating yourself, investing in education. So what would your comment be if somebody, let's just say there's a technician that's in the crossroads and they find themselves pressured by the modern technician mentality of getting into digital now, and again, there's a momentum that technology is bringing with it.
Oh,
that it's pushing. But what would you tell these technicians that may have not had the experiences that you've had and are looking to not survive but strive in the dental technician profession?
So there's been a technology momentum going on for 17 years. I mean, I started a second lab called TechSource Dental in 2003, and at the time we were the 8th authorized lava milling center in the country. And I was kind of laughed at when I started it by 3M because all these big labs like Issaquah and Dale Dental at the time that were outsourcing they were the only ones buying a lava system. And at the time, the lava system was quite expensive. It was $250,000 for one system, which was a mill, a scanner, and a sintering furnace. We bought it, and we started TechSource because we knew we could improve upon the outsourcing aspect of dental lab technology. And at the time, not a lot of folks wanted to drop that kind of cash on like a CAD/CAM system. And the ones who did had all the outsourcing they wanted. But back in 2003, you would send, for instance, your model in, and you would have a coping made. You wouldn't have a crown made, or it would be a coping, a zirconia coping, and you got back what you got back. It may not have been supported correctly. So what we did was we took Synergy's kind of business model and transferred it into TechSource, and created a higher quality outsourcing lab. And so that was great. And, fast forward 3 years later, and we had 3 lava mills going full steam. We were doing well over 100 copings, not crowns, a day at $89 a coping. I call it the salad days. Because, it was nice. Up until 2008, we felt like we were printing money. And I promise I'm not bragging. It was great. And then the economy took a nosedive. And so I had some very, very good advice from a gentleman who's not with us anymore, a gentleman named Mark Jackson. And he had a lava mill too. And he told me, Bobby, be careful. Get as much as you can, as fast as you can out of those mills, because zirconia will become a commodity within the next year. And I was young and arrogant, and I said, no, we're selling a Mercedes, and everybody's going to want it. There's a market for Mercedes and a market for Toyota, and the economy's not going to have any effect. Well, I was dead wrong, and he was absolutely right.